Yeah, I don't know, man. You ever just feel like life is just catapulting towards some greater purpose?
Pampered fat cats with bloated ego. We are the only DJ crazy enough to tattoo Jackie Brown on his ass.
This is Michael Mann, and I ride with
Extended clip.
But now I'm not allowed to talk about it because we're recording and this is TV month. So who cares that I saw Marty Supreme and, have my hot takes on it ready to fire off? Guess what, listener? You get to listen to us talk about Blaise Pascal instead.
Just know he saw it early, though. Just know he saw it already, though. Just know,
Just know that I'm someone you can get really, really mad at for getting access to things as a critic. that I get to see like maybe 4 or 5 titles before their release every year and fucking get denied for 50 other ones every year. But hey, you want to get mad at me for getting a screener of Marty Supreme? Fucking go right ahead. Eat my fucking dick.
don't blame him, blame Josh.
Welcome to Extended Clip. It is episode 465, and I'm one of your hosts, Eddie Averill.
I'm Malcolm Baum.
I'm JT White.
By the time this episode comes out, my review's going to be up anyway. I don't know. This is literally like I'm telling you guys to eat my dick. Sorry.
I don't think I will, frankly.
Pass.
Speaking of, that's one odd thing about Marty Supreme. Were people really telling each other to suck each other's dicks like that back in the 50s? Because, he tells,
really?
100 people to suck his balls. Which I did think was funny. But I was just like, damn, were they saying that back then? That's crazy.
Well, because he's a ping pong guy.
Well, I didn't even think they were giving head back then. It's so conservative,
That's why it's such an insult to say.
Yeah,
I guess no one was
so.
even doing it.
I guess so.
That's the worst thing you could say to a person back then was suck my balls. They're like, I've never even thought of that before. What are you talking about?
All right,
What kind of mind would come up with something like that?
Oh boy. All right. We're actually going to do the episode now. Welcome to Extended Clip. It is episode 465, and I'm one of your hosts, Eddie Averill.
I'm Malcolm Baum.
I'm JT White.
And today we are continuing our mini-series on the television history films of Roberto Rossellini. Today we are talking about 1972's Blaise Pascal. Blaise Pascal shows the scientist and mathematician throughout his life with his, struggles with illness as well as a struggle with a religious society that, questioned science more so than the other way around. And it is, just another chapter in Rossellini's history. I wouldn't say there's necessarily anything new under the sun here compared to the last two that we watched, but boy, did I have a good time with my new buddy Blaise. So how I'm going to start here is, Malcolm, I'm going to ask you, what did you think about Blaise Pascal as a character, as a dude, and particularly this film's portrayal of him by Pierre Arditi?
Not even the movie, just him as a guy.
That's how I want to start.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to start, because this is one of those movies where a historical movie where I don't know anything about the historical figure, and then I watch it and I'm like, this guy was fucking sick, dude. This guy was the man.
He
Blaise
absolutely
Pascal.
was.
Blaise Pascal is, he was the GOAT. Especially
he walked on water. He was playing against plumbers.
He really was. And I think maybe the one difference I would say compared to the other two historical movies we've done is that I feel like we get more epic moments. We get more epic Blaise Pascal moments where, the taking of power is kind of more of a deconstruction of the main character. And Socrates, we're kind of seeing his downfall and kind of the society in which he lived, that downfall too. And in this one, we do see, Rossellini gives us the end of his life. We do see his quote unquote downfall, but it's mostly, kind of this guy's brightest moments where he invented something or kind of rebuted something that was popular thought, kind of sticking up for his beliefs. And, there's some melancholy along the way. There's his chronic illnesses and dealing with family. But as a guy, I love this guy. He has a lot of tact, this Blaise Pascal. That's one thing I like, because he knows the society he deals with is heavily religious, and he's a religious man himself, although I'd say it's a little bit different. It hits a little bit different the way he looks at it. Yeah. He kind of knows who he's talking to. He never goes over the line, but he does, make his point in these discussions. And, that's kind of a lot of this movie is kind of, discussions in the Pascal palace, and kind of him trying to, peddle his new theories, new inventions. I quite like this movie a lot, and I like this Blaise Pascal guy a lot.
Yeah, I think that comparing it to King Louis XIV, The Taking of Power, that is the first one that we did, is a great frame of reference for what like Rossellini's aims are here, where that one is like a disgusting deconstruction, and this one you see some gross shit as he continues to show you the processes that made up 17th century life. But I really like thinking about this because it's historically right there. It's like King Louis, takes power about right when Blaise Pascal's doing a lot of the shit he's doing in this movie. And so we see a lot of familiar like set design and costume design and stuff from The Taking of Power by Louis XIV, but I feel like the attitude is very different. JT, how'd you like this one? And Blaise as a fella as well.
I loved this movie and Blaise as a fella. I totally agree with what you were saying though, Eddie, about the like tone being like different than The Taking of Power in those moments. I feel like it has some beats that I think kind of play in like a comic way because like of how like weird and old-timey they are. Like when the guy is taking all the water out of the room because he doesn't want his soul to drown. Yes. Like that's like
well, the thing is, it's also he's taking all of the liquid out of the room, including the chamber pot too. So it's like
he's taking the pee-pee.
He's got the chemicals, the pee-pee, and the water, like all just in one big swirl. And he's like, "Look, Pascal's soul can't be drowning in this buck,"
So there are like elements of that, but I feel like in terms of tone, like the fact that was there, and then just some of the more like weird, like haunting moments where like the score is kind of similar to like the score from Socrates. It just like reaches like a weird, like kind of unreal like level there with like the vibe where it's kind of like dark and like intense. And one thing I love about the Pascal character is that like he's such a fucking like charismatic, just like genius, like doing like so many different things and like thinking in so many great like new interesting ways. But like the way they kind of set up knowledge at the beginning, I believe it's his like father who talks to him. And I think, I don't know, they treat like learning like you have to be cautious with it. And his chronic illness almost seems like he's just running himself ragged. He's exhausting himself because of how much he's doing.
Yeah, he has the mysterious like Julianne Moore and Safe illnesses that just come and go throughout, and everyone's like, "What the fuck's going on with this guy?" But at the same time, it's like you think about medicine back then and what they were doing to help sick people. It's like, oh, he probably just got sick once, and all of the supposed cures have kept making him worse and worse throughout his entire life.
It's so one another very funny but like kind of dark moment is when he's very clearly dying at the end, and then the doctors are like, they like look at him and he says he's like okay, and they're like he's fine. Like it's just like
he's a smart guy.
It's just like he looks okay. Like it's like what are you talking about? The most just clearly on death's door guy of all time.
Well, I think the craziest process in this was the guy with the broken leg who, when they make his cast, it's like they have this row of servants taking these herbs and chewing on them and then spitting the herbs back into a big bowl. And so you have these like 20 servants just chewing cud and spitting it into the fucking bowl. And then this giant bowl becomes like the base of what wraps right around someone's leg. And then they wrap the outer cast around that, and it's like, what is that supposed to do? I don't know if it's like an herbal thing, like where it needed to be wet and they didn't have water, or if it's literally like a mystical thing, like the saliva of your servants will save you, you know? I truly was fucking baffled by that more than any other process in this movie.
It kind of reminds me of, my grandma used to tell me, if you got a wart on your foot, you could cut open a potato and rub it on the wart and then bury it in the backyard. And that's how warts will go away.
Wait,
no, I've heard that folk wisdom before.
No, you bury the potato. You cut a potato in half, you rub the white part on the insides on the wart, and then you bury it in the backyard. Or I guess any dirt, if you don't got a backyard.
Yeah. So the potato power is supposed to come through the earth and then transmit through your wart, like mystically through that, right? Like it's just supposed to travel through the air.
They never really kind of extrapolated on what what it does necessarily.
That kind of reminds me of like back in the. I remember. I think I told you guys this once. There was a kid at my school who convinced me that if you put two of the same Pokemon card in the same folder overnight, they'll evolve into the next Pokemon.
I think they should do that. I know they don't, but I think that they should. Like I think that's a good idea, to be honest. But in his broken leg, aren't they like? They're like it seems like there's like a wooden plank and some dirt too. So he's just gonna have like a pant full of dirt and like the wood, I guess, is like to straighten it out.
Yeah.
It's insane. I don't know how they got anything done back then.
More on this topic, I famously broke my ankle, 2 years ago. And, every time I see a leg, ankle, anything close to that, especially depicted in this, these, what is this, the 17th century? Yeah. I'm just like, if I broke my ankle like in the 17th century, I would just be fucked for life. Like it would be, basically be over.
You might actually die right away, especially if you're not like a rich guy,
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're not fucking part of the Pascal family, you might be bum out of luck there, or amputated. I don't know.
God damn, dude. Like I love how this film opens also with young Pascal. He doesn't seem to age too much because and that's to make a point that he died super young. He died at like 39 or something like that. But he's introduced, I guess you're supposed to think he's like a teenager at this point. Basically just like balancing the checkbook for his dad, and it's just like, damn, this guy's like a genius. And he's like, oh, by the way, I know I was like you're supposed to just be balancing your checkbook, but I also figured out an equation for conical shapes as opposed to lines. And the dad's just like, what? Like,
we don't have any conical shapes.
We don't know about that conical shit yet. Like, I thought that was so cool how like, because Malcolm, you were saying he gets epic Blaise Pascal moments, and he definitely does, like when things are being displayed to people, but also the conception of the ideas usually is super like slight and like offhanded, and I love that.
I mean, there's also, when I say there's these epic moments, there's a lot, there's also for every moment like that, there's maybe even more moments where he's kind of just sitting in a room suffering, so it is even-handed in that regard. And with the opening, it has like this super leisurely kind of open where even before we get to like the tax office, we kind of just get a tour of the residence, and like I forgot I didn't look at the poster recently, so when I saw that old guy, I'm like, oh, that must be Pascal, and it's Pascal. What is it? Etienne Pascal Senior. Blaise's dad. But yeah, you really kind of, you get a sense of the process and kind of just the general home life there through doing the taxes with his dad, and kind of, that like we just see the dad kind of going over the taxes before we get that moment where Blaise is like, I've thought of this idea. So I really like that opening, and it's very true to a lot of the other Rossellini history movies we've seen, where it's kind of wanting to show you a little bit of how life was lived back then.
I feel like the casual approach is really great in that sense, because I think it's something that's like genuinely very exciting to see. Just like a genius, like a great thinker, like sort of come upon like ideas and just live life. To like see that sort of happen in that time period, I feel like it's just such a inherently fascinating sort of lifestyle that's so alien from today. That's just like, oh, okay, how did he stumble upon the ideas? And it's fun watching that happen.
And I also think that like early on, it does a really good job. The film does a really good job at establishing what the general tension of this is going to be, which is like, faith versus fact, and religion versus science. And he is still a religious man, and that's like the ultimate dichotomy that he faces in this movie. And early on, like one of the mules on the farm is giving birth or whatever, or a mule is being born rather, and he's just like, I'm chill, I don't need to see that, like I'm working on my math, and he's told that your calculations will never equal God's creation, and he does have to think about that for a minute. He's like, maybe I should watch this calf be born, because like it's all connected. It is all the same thing, and I think that's what is really beautiful about this movie, where it could have been more, I don't know, flippant about the like ways that religion got in the way of scientific progress and stuff like that. Speaking of, I mean, there's like a backlog of witch trials when someone comes into some tax problems.
Yeah.
Like that's how the witch trial is introduced too. It's like, well, we could take this to court, but like they're all backed up with witch trials right now.
It's very interesting because someone from the outside looking in, could make a more flippant, kind of anti-religious, they're impeding progress, the path of progress, by doubting Blaise all the time. But I mean, that's, given the figure Blaise Pascal was himself, that's kind of what makes it so interesting, is like, how do you like reckon science in a religious society and as a religious person? And Pascal comes to some really interesting conclusion and gives some really good answers that it's like, and a lot of I mean, there's some other aspects, but I think one of the main points, it's like, I think this makes us look better to God, that we're doing shit and we're coming up with shit and we're figuring it out. Like, I think he wants us to figure this stuff out.
I found that to be a great scene, and it's actually, I think, some point that comes up multiple times. Yeah, when someone is doubting his things, like, dude, I don't know, these calculations you're doing, God might not like these calculations, dude. Like, these might be the work of the devil. He's like, no, he would be happy for us. Like, we're figuring it out, That witch trial scene, though, is fantastic, where it's like a total detour from Blaise Pascal and is focusing on more the world that he lives in as means to like further enunciate how impactful his accomplishments must have been. This witch trial scene is incredible, man. The woman performer at the center of it is really like giving it her all in a more dramatic way than a lot of the kind of like TV style remove that it feels like a lot of the actors in these films are beholden to. Like, I feel like she's really letting loose in this. And also it's a good time to mention that the camera direction does expand a bit from the earlier ones of these, where it's like there's some pretty interesting tracking shots, like moving laterally against the movement of characters rather than doing like walk and talk kind of things. And this scene is definitely no exception in the way that Rossellini shoots these people watching this woman, testify that the devil got a hold of her.
That's such a great scene, and your point about the accused, giving a much more dramatic performance than some of the other performances we've seen in these movies. Rossellini recognizes that and gives her that extra close, or extreme close up, I guess is the term. With kind of paired with that pan and zoom technique that he's using for a lot of that, and it's super effective in the trial too. And it's not even just kind of like the shot kind of remains static, but then it like zooms out and goes back to the the jury, I guess you'd call them, and it just shows kind of something that we already know, but it's just exemplified in a great way where this woman's obviously like mentally ill and like hates her life as this maid. And I think it's even commented upon that it's like, oh, whoever her employer is, treats her kind of poorly, or it's the guy who's in tax problems. And it's, quite obvious that, she's just kind of lost her shit, and they're just trying to get her to admit it, where it's like, so you left the door open so that the devil could come in, right? And she's like, she doesn't even fully comprehend what's going on. She's like, no, I didn't leave the door open. She's like, well, you left the window open, right? She's like, yeah, I guess I left the window open. They're like, all right, take her away. She admitted it.
This is the worst form of mystical entrapment. And I love the score does become like horror movie level score during that scene as well. It really gets very dark. And Malcolm, you mentioned the extreme close-ups on her. I think that it's safe to say it's probably a reference to the most famous close-up heavy / woman on trial movie of all time, The Passion of Joan of Arc.
That's true. Yeah,
I don't think Rossellini would have shied away from a reference point like that. Despite the fact that he is more of an innovator than a referencer in general. But yeah, I found that scene to be so great because right after that, that score that seems like really like dark carries over into the unveiling of the Pascal calculator, the first calculator, and I found that scene to be awesome. Like that's one of the epic Pascal moments in my opinion, is the mystical score playing as he's unveiling the calculator, and it's shortly after that he's being not like questioned, but some of his boys are like, like, are we doing the right thing here? Which is funny that people keep asking him that essentially about science. And it goes into this like sidebar about how Aristotle and Plato were great men because they laughed with their friends. And it's like, damn, that's the realest shit ever. Like, because it reminds me of Socrates, and it reminds me of the Flowers of St. Francis as well, where literally, like, I think Rossellini values laughing with your boys more than like any filmmaker who never made an actual comedy. I don't think anyone like values like being joyous with the boys like he does throughout his films, whether it's an escape from hell on earth fascism, or a historical time that's similar to that, or even just like religious awakening, or anything that you might find in the Rossellini filmography.
That's interesting too, because I think Pascal, he didn't like to kick it. He didn't like to really hang with his boys like that. Well,
it's because he was sick.
Sure, it's because he was sick, but I think it's I think we kind of get a B-side to that thought, in a sense, where a lot of Pascal's inventions, right, are kind of made, kind of just suffering alone in a room. And I think there's even the Ultimate Light Research, a quotable. I feel like I saw a Pascal quote where it's like, humans' greatest fault is that they're afraid to be alone with their thoughts, or something like that. And and he, he's a guy who, there's even kind of a point where he's kind of towards the end, right, where he's, he's hanging out with high society, right, and like, he's even writing to his sister. It's like, I don't even like doing this, but like the doctor, the doctor is in agreement with Rossellini. It's like, maybe you should hang out with some people that might, kind of lift your spirits. So maybe that was Pascal's fatal flaw. Maybe he wouldn't have had all these chronic illnesses if he could, drink some, instead of putting brandy in his boots, he could put some in his cup and hang out with the guys.
Oh man, the brandy boots rule. Go ahead, JT.
I just kind of like that he's like kind of like a goth loner though.
Yeah.
Like especially with that haircut, like just like him like sickly, like just being like by himself. Like
he's just in his room holed up like he's like Ian Curtis or like Scott Walker or any of the great like dark-haired skinny artists who invented beautiful things over in Europe. The boots and the brandy comes in his exhibition of the vacuum, which I thought that was like, this is when the film completely wins me over. And not that I was struggling with it or anything like that, but like to me it crystallizes as being Blaise Pascal hype and aura moments, where like he does the trick where you stick a straw in a drink and put your finger on the top and then bring the straw up and the water doesn't fall out, and that's how he demonstrates the air pressurization and a quantifiable air pressure, and how things can work against gravity of things just falling straight down like we had previously perceived them to do. And in this exhibition, he's like doing the straw trick at different elevations, and one guy goes all the way up to the roof to do it, to show that at different elevations air pressure is different. And just like the long take of the guy walking up the giant ladder to go to the roof, where the camera is slowly panning up to be like, yep, we are really going to go all the way up this ladder to this big ass building to watch a guy hold up a straw and say, yep, good up here. I was just like, oh, this fucking rules. This is the best scene in the movie. It might be my favorite scene of the movie, but at that point I was like, this is kicking into overdrive. But as he's starting his demonstration, he's just like, bring me the brandy. And a guy's just dumping brandy into like a bathtub where he soaks his boots so that his boots get warm to help the circulation in his feet, which is a crazy scheme. Like that's, I don't know. I think that there's like a poor servant who is drinking boot brandy for like a nickel, like that's like the whole reason that exists.
No, I because when you were just describing that to me, I was I'm like, what a waste of fucking brandy. And especially back then, like, aren't resources, I know the Pascals are well off, but it's like, aren't things harder to come by back then? Yeah. And there's got to be an easier way to do that. But you're right. That probably wasn't going to waste. Someone's got to be drinking that.
There's got to be someone drinking the boot brandy.
Just a servant coming in and being like, oh, what? Who put all this brandy in this tub?
It's for the servants. They're being nice to us today. When your boss brings in, pizza for lunch, it's kind of like that. That was the 17th century equivalent of that.
Blaise Pascal walking into the servants' quarters and seeing one of them like sucking off his boot. Oh, hey. Wait, is that my boot? Yeah, I was just doing a spit shine for you,
I was saving that for later. I got to go get up and walk later, so I was keeping the brandy to keep it warm for me.
Oh, boy.
Well, in that invention, right, he comes up with something like, he kind of deems that little bubble of air, right, the vacuum.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of like a concept that kind of overarches the entire movie, because then it gets real scientific. I had to really put my thinking cap on once we got into this part. But then after he invents that, they invite like a priest or some religious figure over, right? They're like, oh, you should hear his opinion on this, like he'll have an opinion on this. And doesn't he say something like, that little air bubble, the vacuum, that's like human or something like that? Or what does he say? Or he it's a living thing?
Yeah, no, the religious clerk or the pastor or whatever basically questions that air bubble as being like a living thing into itself if it holds the weight of not letting the water down, you know? So he thinks it's like one of God's creatures, I guess.
Yeah, and then of course, that might be one of the bigger ownage moments. Then Pascal kind of retorts, kind of like, you can't just define things you don't know. Like that's kind of that's kind of like his response. It's like
he does own him there. That's absolutely true. Yeah,
just being like the bubble is one of God's creations.
Yeah, and like Pascal owns that guy and then gets very sick again, unfortunately, as like the movie goes into the back half, and it's like he's only getting out of bed if he has like the best invention ever, or if Descartes is in town speaking. I loved that, where he's like, yo, Descartes playing, I gotta go see Descartes. He's gonna go drop I think I therefore I am. But I loved that, just like watching Descartes give a speech to all those people, like a great performance by that actor, and also just seeing the one thing that Pascal like is able to interface with him on, and the way the music swells up for that, like it was really cool. And like it's clearly like toward the back end of this, we get a lot of big shortcuts and truncations of history, perhaps. I don't doubt, of course, that Blaise Pascal watched Rene Descartes speak and they had this discussion or whatever. But for example, like him inventing two things back to back within the same breath toward the end is pretty funny. Yeah, when he's figuring out a way to like quantify and diagram space and air, and he's making that like algebraic equation basically for the vacuum, essentially. He like finishes that, and like it's a great shot where Rossellini is close up on the diagram, so you could just like sit in the actual work itself. And then like they're like, all right, cool, we're good, we're done with the vacuum formula. He's like, oh, by the way, I invented public transit. We should do that. But that's the coolest feather in his cap, I think, is at the end of his life, he's just like, we got to get some public carriages going. Just put like a penny to ride around town and everyone can hop on and it's easy, And it's just like, yeah, no shit. Why didn't we already have that? And that is why the coolest thing ever when it works, public transit, can be credited to Mr. Blaise Pascal.
Blaise is the definition of an ideas guy. This guy was coming up with fucking he was inventing, calculators and levels and public transit, but then he was also thinking about how his faith interacts with his like inventor persona, and he comes to a very, kind of unique conclusion within that realm too, because with Descartes, right, he kind of has a dialogue with Descartes, and kind of has a slight disagreement, right, over kind of his opinion on religion, if I remember that correctly. Mm-hmm. And this vacuum that he keeps discussing, it kind of turns into there's kind of two concepts of the vacuum, kind of like the level and kind of just like the classic quote unquote void that Pascal is kind of facing alone in his room. Maybe he's kind of thinking about this void a little bit more because he's not, hanging out with, everyone like Socrates is. And, one of my favorite, I didn't know that this was attributed to him, but I should have realized one of my favorite things, he comes up with the Pascal's wager.
Yeah.
Where
that's the coolest. I love that, where they got like a green felt table and everything when they're with the gamblers.
That is true. And Pascal's wager is kind of like, it truly is like a gamble. I never, the way he kind of broke it down, like it truly is like money mindset, kind of gambling mindset, where it's just like, all right, like if you just act and believe in God and he's real, you'll get that, you'll get that payoff. You'll get a win. It's pretty good odds. And if he's not, then no harm, no foul. But if you don't believe in God, and then he is real and you're fucked, you go to hell. So you might as well just believe in God anyways, just to be safe. Yeah. Just in case. And I find it so interesting because, we have the sister character, which we haven't really mentioned yet, but she's kind of someone you'd think would be in opposition to Blaise, and sometimes is, because of her devout faith. She's trying to move away to a convent, for most of the movie. And, her faith is so fervent, right? Like you see her, that's like the most important thing in her life. And that's kind of what gives her that drive. Whereas Pascal, it is like to come to that conclusion, it is interesting because I feel like you don't kind of get maybe the comfort of faith, kind of the comfort of kind of blindly putting everything, into God. You kind of come to it very scientifically and very, through theorizing, but when he's alone on his deathbed, it is like, is he feeling, God's hand? I'm not sure. Maybe he is, but I found that it got me thinking philosophically. It's like to come to that conclusion, it is like, it just feels very different than, I believed in God my whole life and I devote my life to him.
In regards to like Pascal's relationship to God, I think it was interesting to really learn about that, because Pascal is really important in Rohmer's My Night at Maud, and he comes up in like intellectual conversation, I feel like, throughout the movie, and that attitude of faith feels like something that would be like up Rohmer's alley, someone who is like similarly like an intellectual, and I feel like has to like grapple with like the, I don't know, scientific elements of the world versus like faith.
Wow, I think you just invented a like not actually old school extended clip, but like future extended clip PhD double highbrow double feature right there of Blaise Pascal My Night at Maud's, which would sell 12 tickets, but it would be awesome.
That would be so fucking sick.
That would genuinely be like a god tier programming night. I mean, they're both owned by Janus Films. It wouldn't cost all that much together. You know what? Hey, we may have just struck gold here. Maybe in 2026 we're doing the night of Pascal and Rohmer.
And we should all convert to Catholicism beforehand to really give some juice to the screening. Really kind of try to bring the zealots out. Like this is kind of
have the screening
spiritual
at a church.
Awakening.
Yeah. Well, I think a good way to hold us back from converting is, per usual, the evils of the Catholic Church, such as very offhandedly mentioned. I totally forgot about this, but when Malcolm brought up the sister character, like 30 minutes in, he's like, oh yeah, my sister, she like really seduced this cardinal when she was like 12 and he was watching her in a play. And they were like, nice. And then that's it.
Does Blaise say that, or is that when the calculator's first invented? Right, we kind of get this side character who's like a guy who's like more royal than the Pascal, and he's like inspecting the calculator. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, this is quite an interesting work. Yeah, he's like, it's like the only reason that their dad gets to be in that position is because of the cardinal saw that daughter like act in a play. And like that scene is so great because it's exemplary of stuff we've been saying, where Rossellini's giving you, kind of like the day-to-day details, where we see like this king get woken up by a prayer and then kind of, sashay his way to this meeting where he gets to be like, oh yeah, sick, a calculator? Yeah, this looks pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's fucking great work.
Man, I really, really like this movie. The more I talk about it, the more joy I get out of it. And these Rossellini movies about history, man, I'm gonna miss it. That's why I'm really looking forward to our last one next week. Is I think it's like 3.5 hours total, because it's like a 3-hour or like a 3-part thing, and I think all of them are like a little over an hour, about Cosimo Medici. So I just feel like, we're ending the year on this note of enlightenment, where we're
Yes.
learning about our buddies Blaise Pascal and Socrates and Cosimo Medici, and everyone else is doing their like year-end awards movies bullshit, talking about like Joachim Trier and Marty Supreme and stuff like that. It's like,
Hamnet.
yeah, Hamnet. Yeah, we're not talking. There, trust me. I'm gonna say it one more time, and that's the only time it's been said on the entire history of extended clip. We're not talking about Hamnet.
And that's a line in the sand we're drawing.
Yeah.
That is. Oh,
We won't be saying the title. I like the idea. The title will not be mentioned in the rest of the history of this show.
I think that like, and this is a sidebar that already is pushing it, because like we're not supposed to be talking about this kind of shit at all this month. But like, I'll give you guys a sidebar here for those just itching for real movie new release talk, and not made for TV 50 years ago talk. I think every year there is a line in the sand movie where it's like, I'm going to do my due diligence of like being caught up with movies and everything. And especially these days where I'm trying to be more of like a new release critic. But like every year there's at least one where I'm just like, yeah,
No
I
way.
can't even acknowledge that one. Like I cannot do it with that one.
This just gave me a great idea for the end of year episode. We should go back like for the past 5 years and like try to make a list of our line in the sand movies. Like the one movie while we were doing catch up, for the end of year, that we were just like, all right, I'm definitely not watching that one. That's the one I'm gonna discard. Because the ones, there's like 20 that you're like, oh, I'll put this on a short list of movies that I might get to. Those don't count. Like it has to be one that's like doesn't make the short list.
Yeah.
I'm making a point. I'm making a statement by not watching this.
If I wasn't as and this is my spoiler here for that list, if I wasn't as committed to attempting to be a new release film critic, this year my line in the sand movie would have been Train Dreams. But I did watch Train Dreams because I felt compelled to do so. But regardless, back to Blaise Pascal. One other note on this that's hilarious. Just like, this is a very personal thing. Just to my own circumstances here, and we're pretty deep into this episode, and usually I wouldn't reveal personal circumstances on a main feed episode, but fuck it, this was really funny. I was watching this, and as Blaise Pascal is talking about the greatness of the human soul, like I remember that phrase coming up on the subtitles, I hear my dad open a package behind me and go, fuck, I did buy the one ply.
I love ply humor.
The toilet paper humor will literally never die. Like, that is just always gonna hit.
They got 4-ply, right?
Oh,
Is that a thing?
that's for luxury. That's for when we're making Chapo money, The Patreon ever hits 100,000 a month, you bet your ass I'm getting 4-ply.
That's the first luxury purchase you're making. You're going to the grocery store.
Well,
to
the first
most...
luxury purchase I'm making is my own apartment, probably.
Well, for me, I'll be going to the nicest grocery store.
Straight to the 4-ply.
Yeah.
Straight to the
Going
4-ply.
to
I'm like, do you guys have
Erewhon?
6-ply in the back? Yeah, Erewhon. They don't even sell toilet paper there.
Just basically wiping your ass with like a washcloth. It's so thick.
Just having a staff to like wash washcloths for you to wipe your ass with.
Once I get money, I'm moving into a hotel. Fuck my apartment, bro. I'm living in a hotel every day.
And wiping
New
with
hotel.
towels.
Doing whatever I want to the towels. Whatever I please, whatever I deem fit.
And if the managers of the John Hotel in Flushing, Queens, are listening to this, Malcolm did not used to think this way about towels.
The John
There's no
Hotel.
way
That's-
you cannot charge me a surcharge for Malcolm admitting to the towel discrepancies.
That just killed me. That made me go into a coughing fit, just like being nervous about at a hotel you stayed at like a month and a half ago. It's like, shit, they could charge me for this.
They're gonna find out what kind of liquids and other matters were up in their
Well,
towel.
See, that's why I say I don't say anything like that. I just say I'm doing whatever I want to the towel, and then we don't need to get into the nitty gritty, you know.
Oh boy. All right, so
Oh.
one more note on this. I mentioned already that it's basically on his deathbed that he invents public transit. There is a cutaway to them trying to conjure up a remedy for him, in which the medicine man is delivered a bunch of worms and a bunch of herbs and 2 puppies.
Yes.
And
yes.
are the puppies being ground up?
Yeah, man.
I think
That's
so.
ancient
I don't
medicine.
like that at all. I thought it was like, all right, so we'll grind up the worms and the herbs, and then he can play with the puppies, and it'll make him
No,
feel
man.
better.
No. That was the funniest part of the movie because it's just like if there's one spot where you might like fudge it a little bit with the historical accuracy thing, it's just like them using like dogs to make like healing cream for him. But
It's
that
the
really
most
made me laugh.
insane thing ever. I mean, that is the ultimate contradiction of all of these movies. Is like, it's such an interesting historical approach where it's like, yeah, these guys are like the geniuses of all time, and part of it is because they existed in an era where everyone else thought you had to grind up puppies to make people feel better.
You know, maybe that's why, because, you know, another thought that I had that kind of coincides with that is that, like, if you just got sick or injured back in those days, everyone's like, well, you're a piece of shit. Like, God's punishing you. Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, that's
Too
kind
many
of
bad humors.
that reflects badly on you. Like, that's your fault. Like, you're doing something wrong. And maybe it's because all the medicine they had to, like, all right, you got to get 3 cute puppies and grind them into a topic, like a dust, into a
it's
very
like,
fine dust.
Yeah, it's like 2 ounces of fucking medicine. Like, how do
Yeah.
you turn 2 dogs and a barrel of worms into like a 2-ounce bottle of cream?
It's
Fuck
pretty
it's
it's a
concentrated.
wasteful process. You don't
yeah,
use the whole dog.
I'm choosing to believe. I'm choosing to believe that the puppies were for play and for spiritual matters.
Well, it is great that like the puppies are like adorably cute, like cuter than any like dogs couldn't have been that cute back then. Like dogs were probably like ugly as fuck, like mangy, all matted and shit. You know, but those are like 2 puppies straight out of the salon. 2 Paris Hilton level dogs straight to the grinder because I'm aching. I got a backache.
Oh, man. I think also, and this isn't as funny, I'm not going to be able to stop laughing, though, to get to this serious note at the end, but when he does go out, he's like, you know, I wish I could be more Christ-like and die among the poor, but I'm not going to, basically. Like, he's like, you know, and it's a really interesting dichotomy where it's like, he's not going to give himself over to poverty or anything like that because he recognizes that this life that he's led of wealth is why he's able to contribute so much to the human race anyway. So why repudiate that at the end just to be quote unquote more Christ-like? But I like the kind of self-doubt of that at the end where he's like, you know, it relates to what JT was saying about emo/goth Pascal, where he's like, you know, I wish I could be dying with poor homeless people right now. It would be much more Christ-like than what I'm doing. But it's like, he's not gonna do that. And I found that to be really interesting and oddly moving, to be honest.
It kind of reminds me of like, you know, you see like, you'd say smart people kind of like, and it's like a video of like some dumb people be like, I'll never be as happy as this. Like, this is peak happiness, you know, being dumb or whatever. And like I feel like that kind of like kind of goes with like his position of having a unique point of view with his faith. And it kind of reminds me that scene where he kind of ponders doing that, dying in poverty, but then doesn't. You know, it's kind of like when Socrates questions the animal sacrifice, where it's like, do you think God's really given us special points for doing like these kind of like gestures, you know what I mean? It's kind of just calls like the way people thought and practiced religion back then, where it's like you're not actually doing anything for anybody by like going to the hospice and dying in poverty. It's kind of just a performative gesture. And like I feel like by calling in these practices into question, like that's kind of the result of thinking of that.
As we wrap up here and get to the end of Blaise Pascal Siakam's life, any final thoughts here in a rating? I will start with JT.
I'm gonna go 5 bullets on this. I was on the fence about just going for it, but like especially talking through it, like there's just so much to love here, and I feel like my enjoyment of the Rossellini history movies has grown with each one, and I think this one just kind of combines aspects I liked about both, where it has like kind of more of the like humorous moments of the first. I feel like just at like how like out of step with that time we are, and just how nonsensical some practices from then seem. But I feel like it's used to a different extent that's much more like Socrates, where it's painting Pascal as just like what you were I feel like what you were saying, Eddie, where it's just like this genius kind of like out of step or beyond like his time, where it just like enhances how stupid everything looks with I don't know, just how unendingly brilliant he is. And it's so fun to watch him just kind of develop ideas and live his life. It doesn't have much of like a narrative, like I mean like all of the history films I feel like doesn't have like a strong narrative sway, but it does feel so exciting at times, because I think he's able to like just create like a weird, like almost mystical atmosphere at points with like the score and just like the way he moves the camera like kind of in and out of the scene. Yeah, I think this is amazing, and just some of the best history film we've seen so far.
Wow. Malcolm, what about you?
I'm in agreement with JT in that, yeah, this is definitely my favorite one so far. I'm going to go 4.5 bullets, but I've been having rating anxiety where I feel like I went back and saw a rating. I'm like, that's a little low. I feel like I should be more generous to that, so maybe maybe retroactively go add a half star to every rating I've ever given. That's a listener task I'm giving.
You should do that yourself and like clog up the Letterboxd activity feed for 24 hours. Just like Malcolm rated American Sniper 4 bullets. Malcolm rated like every single movie you've ever seen re-rated.
True. I'm about to relaunch my Letterboxd. The Malcolm Letterboxd unrated, or no, that's
Re-rated.
I'm trying to make
Yeah.
re-rated.
Yeah.
It's kind of like unrated, but then it's re-rated.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the deluxe edition of a raunchy teen comedy. But
Just like going to that for excitement, but it's just literally every score is shifted up a half star. Like,
Malcolm re-rated.
I can't believe the hosts of Extended Clip are saying re-rated again. Like, it's 2025, guys.
Nobody re-rates anymore, man.
Leave that word behind. You're with them if you're saying that.
That guy's so re-rater. Yeah. Re-rated.
so fucking stupid.
I love this movie too, man. Like I watched it like at 6 a.m. too, and so I was a little hazy for some of it. And as I've like thought about it all day, it's really grown on me. And I'm not sure. Like, man, as I said last week, it's gonna be fucking hard to rank these. I'm gonna also go 4.5 on these ideas of Blaise Pascal and these films that we've talked about, because all of them have been 4.5 bullet for me so far. Which, speaking of rating anxiety, I must have messed up. I gave Voyage to Italy 4, which it's definitely not. It's definitely higher than that, which means that Rossellini has the highest average rating probably of any filmmaker ever for me, other than like Charles Laughton, who only made one movie that's a masterpiece. Because like every Rossellini I've seen now has been 4.5 or above, and I think I've seen 8 of his movies. So I think we're moving into the realm of Rossellini like creeping up into the all-time list for me, which I never had him low for any reason other than ignorance. I just hadn't seen his stuff. So I'm like super stoked on this. I found this to be really enriching. And yeah, Malcolm, I think what you said early on about the big moments, like, I feel like this is a really playful film in that regard, where it also has long stretches of him literally just writhing and suffering and dying slowly in bed while the camera tracks back and forth or zooms in and out. But then it also has these bursts of like the greatest historical achievements ever back to back in 5 minutes, you know? And I find it to be so interesting. And, you know, it's funny that JT brought up My Night at Maud's. I would love to see how this compares to like some of the more stagey Romare stuff that I haven't seen, like what's it called,
The Marquis of O.
Well, I've seen The Marquis of O, and honestly I can kind of get a little bit of that vibe from it, but
sure.
What's the like 3-hour one that's like a stage play? Percival.
I've never seen that.
I think we might have to do Percival next year now. Like,
that'd be tight.
think now that we've accomplished this, all of these like historical films and like epic crazy period stuff by art house guys who I was initially into for their contemporary stylings are starting to finally appeal to me a lot more, and this was no exception. It's just such a fun movie and a beautiful movie, and the added camera movement in this steps up a level from Socrates, even if I think Socrates is still like the GOAT character of these movies, like just as a performance and as a dude, like that's my GOAT right there. But
he's the better hang too.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, he's just hands on his stomach, you know, laughing, questioning, like he's the GOAT. But yeah, Blaise Pascal, 4.5 bullets for me. I adore this film, and this series is kind of like reconfiguring a lot of things about this period of cinema. That's going to do it, I think. You can always email us at extendedclippodcast@gmail.com and join us on Patreon to get an extra episode every single week. On our recent Patreon episode, we talked about Portrait of a White Marriage with Devin Daniel Green, the filmmaker of Medieval Times and our friend. That is a crazy Martin Mull TV movie with the great Fred Willard as well, killing it, directed by Harry Shearer. Next Patreon episode is The Innocent with Kelsey Grammer. And then next week on the main feed, we got the final episode of our Rossellini miniseries, The Age of Medici. And if you don't know, by the way, all these Rossellini history films, you can watch them on Criterion Channel. I mean, if you're an hour into the third of the fourth episode of this series, I'm sure you know how to find these movies, but I feel like it should be said that they're all on the Criterion Channel.
Yeah, little heads up.
You know, when the Criterion Channel is not inventing new fake subgenres like, I don't know, thunder noir or whatever else they do for series, is like the stuff that just lives on there from like the Eclipse sets and stuff rules. Check it out.
Breakfast noir movies.
Breakfast noir.
Yeah.
You could really add noir to anything.
Yeah.
You could really add it to anything,
Yeah.
and I could kind of like I could make an AI generated image in my head of what that is.
Coming to the channel in January, psychedelic noir.
That's probably happened. There's good odds that's.
I mean, I
know.
could pitch it to them. They're not listening to this. I can,
True, just pitch 100 blank noir things to the Criterion, like it's a packet for Jimmy Fallon or something like that.
Sending my A material to the Criterion Channel.
Concrete noir.
Concrete noir. That's hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the asphalt jungle in there, Yeah.
Just any noir movie.
All right, goodbye everybody.